Today we are discussing the mentality of wealth. There's a mindset of wealth. Wealth is not just money, it's much more than that. There's a mindset that makes a man wealthy, that every wealthy man possesses. There's a way a wealthy man thinks, which is beyond the money. And if you don't have that mindset, the possibility that you will be rich for a long time is very, very slim. You see, somebody can give you money, but if you are going to keep that money, you must develop certain level of thinking, some kind of thinking. You see, think about when you say to maybe you have something to sell, for instance, and you tell a poor man that, or someone who doesn't have money, let me use that word, and say this thing is going to cost let's say $5,000, or let's say $5 million. Yeah, $5 million. Now, most people who are poor, or who don't have money, or who don't have a lot of resources, once they hear that something costs $5 million, we just close their brain. They will just shut out. Say, this is not for us. But you see, a rich man don't think that $5 million is a problem, whether or not he has the money. So when you tell the wealthy man that something costs $5 million, the first thing that comes to his mind is, how can I afford it? The poor man says, we can afford it. It's not for us. Why? He shut his brain. When he says it's not for us, the brain closes. Because in his mind, there's no way that something that is cost $5 million can be for people. They are not talking to people like us. That's the thinking. You see, you didn't come to that thought today because you heard the price. That is the way you have been programmed to think. The wealthy man, on the other hand, when he hears something is $5 million, he asks his mind question, how can I afford it? You see, and when you ask your body, you ask your mind, how can I afford it? It goes to work to figure out how it can afford that same thing that somebody else saw and said is not for us. So when you tell, so this thing costs $5 million, and all the people said it's not for us, and they go back home, and the rich man comes in and think, okay, how can I afford it? Because he taxes his mind to figure out how to afford it, the mind goes to work, and he may come back with an idea that will actually make the poor people to pay for that thing for him. I give you an example. So you said the thing is $5 million, and all the poor people say, no, we can't afford it. And the rich man says, okay, how can I afford it? And he goes to think, and he said, okay, let me organize a concert, for example. Bring in artists from somewhere, let them come and do show and dance, bring it, and they already know that all of the artists have fans. So the rich man have thought of, okay, let me do a little investment because I'm looking at $5 million. So he bring in artists from everywhere, maybe some of the popular artists that he knows have a lot of fans, maybe in the area that he lives. And then these artists are coming, they're selling tickets. So they sell tickets, and guess what? All the poor people who cannot afford the $5 million stuff buy the tickets to go see their favorite artists. When they come into the stadium, the place is packed out, and they had a great night of fun. And guess what? From all those ticket sales and all the refreshment they're going to be selling in that show for that day, the rich guy, or the man who has the mindset of wealth, organized all of these things. So he collected all the money that the poor see they don't have. Gather those money, pay the artists whatever, the charges. And from the balance of the rest of the money, he goes and afford the thing that the poor man said I cannot afford. Now think about it. Who paid for that thing? The poor guy. The same guy who said, I don't have money, I can't afford the $5 million thing, was the same one who paid for that thing that is $5 million. Now, I gave that example to show you that when it comes to wealth, it's a mindset thing. It's a mentality thing. How do you think? So your thinking processes is more important than actually the money itself. You know why? Because the money will come as a result of the way, your way of thinking. You know, when you tell your brain, I said, this is not for me, your brain shut down. When you say, how can I do it? Your brain is activated. So look, in the society where, where you said the gap between the rich and the poor is widening, you know why? All the money that the rich has, or that the rich is spending, all of them come from the poor. But you know what? The way the rich collect the money from the poor legally is by producing value for the poor, and the poor will give the little they have to the rich, and the man becomes richer, and the poor remain poorer. So there's no mystery to this thing. It's just a matter of a game of it's a mentality thing. You see, like we said, what view? How do you see things? That could just be all that is keeping you poor. Your worldview, your thinking processes. Think about the scenario I just gave you. The same thing that you heard they said I can afford. The same thing somebody else came up with a plan to collect the little money you have to pay for that thing, but you will never know that you actually pay for that thing. It's mindsets. How do you look at things? You see, the Chinese, the word for problem in Chinese, I don't know why it's Mandarin now or one of the Chinese language. The word for problem, no, I think in Japan, the word for problem is the same word for opportunity. It's one word for both problem and opportunity. In that kind of tell you that opportunity is in the problem. Every problem brings opportunity. But that is a matter of mentality and interpretation. When you say there's no money, when someone say there's no money in this country, that's a lie. That's not a true statement. That's a big lie. Because in that country, there are wealthy people. Question is then, are they wealthy with sand or stones? They're wealthy in money. The money you said there isn't is the same thing that made them wealthy. So you see, I think also financial education must begin with training ourselves to see the way we should see, to see what we should see, training our mind to think properly. You see, tasking your mind to think properly. Some people would rather go and sleep that wake to think, you know. But wealth, we said, is first and foremost a mentality. See, it's first and foremost a mentality. It is that mentality that makes you work. When you say, okay, for example, you've been doing business now for 3 years. 3 years of business, nothing to show for it. Now, what is the possibility that the poor man will continue for the fourth year? Very slim. But the man who had a mindset of wealth knows that, all right, I've not seen anything in 3 years, but maybe if I hold on a while, maybe after 5 years, I'll start seeing fruits. And it stays there. And I forget the program I watched some years ago, and the former president of America, Donald Trump, and Robert Kiyosaki, they authored the book together titled "Why We Want to Reach." So in one of those, movements, they went to a Paula White program, TV program. Paula White was, like interviewing them about the book. They were talking about the book. So something that really got my attention in the whole of this was Donald Trump said something. He said there was a project or a license he was pursuing in New York City for 17 years before he got a license. He said he pursued that project for 17 long years before he got a license to develop, that area or that property. Then he asked a question. He said, how many poor people do you know who will pursue one thing for 17 years? Then he says, that's why there are not many rich people. And that got me thinking. How many poor people do you know that will pursue one thing for 17 years? What will make a man pursue one license for 17 long years? The mentality. You see. So he knows that, well, what do I lose? I pursue it. As long as it's available, I pursue it. If peradventure, at any point I happen to get it, I made it. So what? He pursued it. And after 17 years, he got the license. When all the poor people have given up, he got the license, developed a property that made him so much money. That got my attention. You see, it just tells you the way they think or he thinks. So, as we are learning about wealth and so on, you must also be developing the mindset, the mentality. Develop the mindset, the mentality. See, and tell yourself whatever it takes to get this result is what I will do. It's going to take years. I'm committed to the process. Think about Elon Musk now. Go and find out how many rockets, he's busy with the SpaceX project. Find out how many rockets he has lost. Think about Tesla. Read about it, how he almost went bankrupt. Think about how many trial and error. You know what it takes to build the rockets? Think of how many they have launched and were not successful. But they kept doing it because he knows that once he get a breakthrough, he will be on top in the world. And you can see it. So your mentality is important. Are you built for wealth in the way you think? All right. Thank you. See you in the next video.